Hello, welcome back. My name is Adrian, and today we've got a stained glass beginner project for you. If you haven't been with us before, we do a weekly live stream where we check through how to do the cutting, foiling, soldering of stained glass projects. And if we look over here, in the the June projects, we had the dragonfly, manatee, a landscape, and the mushrooms here. And so now for the July, we just finished the June. Yes, we just finished the June. Now we're doing the July. And so we've got the July kit here. So we're going to go ahead and go through and unbox all that. And we do have a few special things also going on. We've got some new t-shirts coming out. I've got one of them on here. And so that's going to be kind of a fun thing. And we've got a bunch of cool designs. They'll be wearing different ones each week. And we also got a few new tools here. So that is very exciting too. We've got the new foiler has arrived, and we're going to be giving it a shot today, see what we think about it. And we are also going to be getting into the July kit, the first week of the July kit. I believe it is a cat. So that will be the first cat that we have done on this channel here so far. So again, we like to really pack it up really well. All right, get this out of the way. Go ahead and cut through all this stuff, all the bubble wrap, make sure all the glass really gets there in one piece. All right, there we have it. Get this all unwrapped here. And now we've got the glass package area. Go ahead and cut through all this stuff. Okay. And as we know, we are trying to do a different of 4 glasses each month. So I believe this is following that. There are only so many white and black glasses that you can get. So that is one pretty major constraint. But as far as all the blues and greens and stuff like that, we got tons of options. So we definitely are not doing any repeats of those. So for this month's 4 projects, we've got a white and tan streaky glass. We've got a white glass, and this one is a smooth variation. We've got a black glass. Let's see if this one has a texture or if it's a smooth. This one is a water texture. You can kind of see that in the reflection there. And we've got a kind of a streaky blue greenish glass. So these are our 4 glasses for the month of July's projects. So we can get all that tossed to the side. And we've got our glass patterns here. So let's go through these. All right, we got our 4 patterns here. So for this month, we've got an otter. That's kind of a black and white animal. We've got a cat head. We've got the whale, or the orca, I think they call it. And we've also got a little deer. So I'm gonna go ahead and trace those so you'll have an idea of what those look like. So this one is the deer. So that'll be a fun one. Kind of see that one looks like. So these are going to be some pretty fun projects. So those are for the later next 3 weeks. And for this week, we are doing the cat head. All right. And hey, Sheila, thanks for joining us. Welcome from Virginia. And Mary, actually all of these are Oceanside glasses. All of these. So this green and blue is, yeah, it's from Oceanside. Okay, now, and Sheila, thank you too for reminding everyone to hit the like button. I do appreciate that. So of course, we're gonna go ahead and protect our brand new shirt here and get our apron on to get started. And we are going to begin with our little piece here. Now this pattern, it's got a bunch of opportunities here for some decisions. We're gonna want to pick out what color fur we want, all that stuff. Now I think what I'm going to do is look back at my notes here so that I make sure to put the right pieces in the right places. And hey Connie, thank you for joining from I believe it's Pennsylvania, right? PA. And good to see you again. Let's see. Let me just make sure in my notes I put this in the right spot. And really, you know, the pieces here are, you know, you can kind of, it's art, so you can kind of do what you want. Now for the little blacks, or the little pupils, we're going to put that as the black glass. And these pieces are pretty small. I'm going to actually leave those in place, the ones that I traced. I'm going to place these. And whenever you put on these really small ones, you're going to want to make sure that the glass is pretty clean. And you're going to want to make sure that the vinyl is stuck down really well. So if you're not familiar, these are adhesive-backed vinyl. You can peel and stick them. And that's what we're going to use as our cutting templates. Okay. So now we are going to want to, let's see, do a few more things here. I think that, let's check through what we've got here. I think that what we're going to want to do in our wispy glass here, we are going to want to kind of selectively place a few pieces so that we get the color that we want. Now, if you look closely, there's a lot of these kind of tans in here. We're going to use that for the little nose of the cat here. So it's got this little nose piece. And I'm going to want to make sure to pick a tan spot, you know, kind of almost more of an orangey spot. So it is going to be important that we look out for that. And another thing is that you can see that this glass is different on both sides. You know, it's a little bit lighter, kind of milkier on this side, and it's a little bit, the tans are coming through a little bit more. This glass is smooth on both sides, so we can pretty much cut on it, both sides. So we're going to use that to our advantage here. Now for this little nose piece, I've got this little cluster of sort of this orangish kind of glass. You know, it's more orangey. So I'm going to use that for more of the nose. So I'm going to put that right there. And again, I want to kind of wipe off any sort of little oil residue that might be on this glass. There we go. Okay. And now, let's see, the ears, let's check this out right here. Probably what we're going to want to do is for the ears, let's see, in the little mouth spot, sort of underneath the nose, almost like the bottom jaw of that cat, we're going to want to do that in the white glass. So we're going to move that over to the white. And then in the, let's see, I think that in the eyes, around the pupils, we're going to use this glass, kind of make it look like it's got a little bit of a color in those eyes. I think it's going to look pretty cool. And again, we're going to try to clean this glass off. So we're kind of using a bunch of the colors here. We're just going to place all that down. There we go. Okay. Now what I think we're going to want to do is for the, let's see, let me look through this. And I think that what we're going to want to do is probably, at this point, probably the two ears need to be a little bit of this more tannish glass. And what I think I'm going to do is sort of, I still have this tannish area over here. I'm going to put them down in this area also. And then for the rest of it, I'm going to use the milkier side. See, it's a little bit less vibrant of color. And I think that's going to work out to sort of give a little bit of a contrast with the ears and nose with the rest of the fur. So this cat is a little bit of a tannish, orangish cat. So that's kind of a pretty fun piece to cut right there. So we're going to get that one. Oh, and we want to make sure, of course, that we don't put it where we've already put some pieces. So we get all our pieces over there in this corner. So we're going to kind of put them over here in this corner. All right. So we've got all those decisions made. And now we can begin actually cutting our glass here. All right. And hey, Jet Set J, thank you for joining us. Welcome from Seattle. Okay. So we've got all of our pieces here placed. And hey, Mary, this is Langworthy. We have Mary Beth Massey here too. Thank y'all both for joining, of course, again. Okay, so what we want to do here is take our glass cutter. I normally use a pencil grip here, and we are going to go through and get this glass all separated so that we don't accidentally cut into our other pieces. So normally I'll do a score, give it a couple taps, just trying to get that score, or getting the glass to separate along that score all the way. A little bit of pressure, get it to separate. And so we're going to set this aside. Oh, actually, we've got a few on the other side that we want still. And I think that between these two colors, it's going to be a nice contrast for us. Okay. You can kind of see it right here between the two. It's kind of subtle, but you can still see it. Okay. So we're going to get this little mouthpiece separated here. Couple taps. Get these little eyeball area separated. Little color in the eyes. Hey, Ella, thanks for joining. Happy Independence Day to you as well. Okay. So we've got the pieces all out here now. So we are going to continue cutting. Now we're going to want to separate all of these so we don't accidentally cut into its neighbor. So I'm going to do all the scoring here. And if you want to, you can kind of cut one of the edges as you go. Sometimes I'll do that. It'll save you a score down the line. And these pieces are getting a little bit small for my hands to break, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the Grosers here. There we go. And if they get too small with one hand and one Groser, I'll get the other Grosers too. And we will we'll be in good shape like that. It'll keep us safe, keep our hands from getting all beat up and cut up from all that sharp edges. Okay, so we've got all of our pieces separated now. So we're going to go through and do all of the scoring, and then we're going to do all the breaking at the same time. Now I've got all of my pieces. Let's see here. Oh, here we are. Got my little table brush here. Already getting some glass debris down. We're going to go ahead and get that all taken care of. We're going to go ahead and switch over to the free camera here. And we can get a different angle here of the work we're doing. So we're just taking this little wheel here at the edge of this cutter, running it right along the edge of this vinyl. And if you are a beginner, this vinyl really takes some of that learning curve out of it because it acts a little bit like a template, like a guide almost for the glass cutter. So you might find that to be pretty helpful. And whatever we don't cut perfectly here on the template, we can just go back and grind it down and we will be in really good shape. There we go, got our first one all broken out. So I'm actually, before I break them on the next round, I'm gonna make sure to score everything. So it'll kind of reduce the amount of sweeping off we have to do. So again, just going through. Nice even pressure right there on the edge of that vinyl. There we go. So we're just taking that. And if it feels like maybe I'm going a little bit fast here, just takes a little bit of practice. And it might be something that we've got some other little bit easier patterns to do. Might be a little bit better for beginners, more straight line, stuff like that. Whenever you are cutting for the first time, you're going to want to master cutting straight lines first. At least be a little more comfortable, and then you can kind of gradually get into the curved lines. And when I say, curved lines, I mean, you can definitely practice cutting them. It's just a little bit harder than a straight line if you're trying to get a really specific shape. And Mary Beth mentioned that the vinyl has been a game changer for her. So I appreciate that. Appreciate that input there. And also, right now in the middle of filming a video, it's actually with my wife, Maria. And she is a complete beginner too. And yesterday we made her first piece. And so she was kind of using the vinyl too. And she did a really good job. So really, I know that that is working out really good for people too. So whenever you have a curve like this, you'll notice I'm not trying to cut it just in one fell swoop. This one, it was 3 different scores. So I did the first one, let's see. The first one, I think I did something kind of like this, along like that. And the second one I did kind of like this. And then the third one, I started it right there and I ended it like that. So I did 3 kind of runs there. Okay. And we've got a few more pieces to score. Some of these shapes are pretty funky. We're going to have to kind of do some little techniques here to make it a little bit more manageable. So we have a little inverted radius here. So I'm going to go ahead and score that. We're not going to cut it like that. I'm going to do a few more scores, a little bit of a shallower radiuses, and that'll make it much easier for us to get in there. A few more pieces here to do. And Ella said, "Way to go, Mrs. Stainglass." That's funny. sure she will appreciate the support. I do appreciate that. Okay, there we go. So this is kind of that mirror image piece. There we go, we got that. And we were actually thinking about doing it as a live stream last week because we had finished the June projects, all 4 weeks of the June projects. But it was a little bit too much to try to do all that live. And I'm glad we decided not to do that. That would have been a little bit too much, I think. There we go. Ella mentioned that I should show what she made. I will be. We will be posting that video soon. And I don't have, it's a pretty simple design. It's all straight cut. It's kind of a bunch of diamonds. And it's just perfect for a beginner. And it's actually going to be a part of our beginner kit. So that is a, you know, that will be a helpful tool since I've got the full video instructing how to create the beginner kits. So we're coming out with a new beginner kit that's going to include some glass and tools and everything and a couple of really simple patterns. And so along with that, we'll include those links to those videos. And I think that'll be really helpful. You know, not only seeing a beginner do it, but she asks questions that I normally wouldn't think of that might be useful information. And so I think that might be pretty helpful for a beginner to sort of see a beginner get instructed, and of course they can join the Stained Glass Mastery community and get even further instruction. Okay, so we've got all of our pieces here scored. We're going to now go through and break them all apart along that score line. So this makes a pretty big mess. What I think I'm going to do is scoot all the pieces to the side and make a big mess right here. And a couple other things we've got going on this episode. Of course, we have the new shirts. We've got the new July kit that we are working on. Oh, right here we're going to want to probably, it's kind of a shallow radius, but I'm going to go ahead and score that to give us a little bit more leverage in there. Just make it a little bit safer for us. See that? Now it's a lot less meat to try to remove. Oh, another thing we do have is the new foiler in stock for today. So we're going to be giving that a try. We actually tried it yesterday when we were filming that video, and it worked really well. So I'm pretty excited to be giving that a try and offering that new product here very soon. And we're going to want to cut that down a little bit too. So if you're having trouble breaking these radiuses and they keep breaking, you know, the wrong way, because right now if I try to really force it, it's likely to just break right through the piece, and we don't want that. So this way it'll make it a little bit easier for that glass to come out. Just like that. Okay. Got our second piece done. So this is why I like, oh, see, this is another one we're going to want to cut through and maybe even cut it a little bit shallower, couple shallower cuts like that. I think would be all right. Snip all those off, and this one we might even still need another shallower cut here. when it's really kind of a bigger curve, you can kind of chew it away with the grosers a little bit and not have to worry too much about it kind of breaking the piece. When it's really small and like really weak, especially if it's, see, this is kind of a wider piece. If this piece, if none of this area was here and it was just like this, you couldn't do that. It'll just snap right through. It'll be really weak. So these kind of interior radiuses are really the trickiest part when it comes to cutting glass sometimes. So this is that mirror image of that piece. So we'll have kind of the same thing to deal with here. And when I'm doing this, I like to do the flat jaw on top. I think it gives you just a little bit more leverage to kind of snap that piece on that score line. And right here we'll do the same thing. Trying to keep the workspace a little bit neater. Do a few scores into there. That should do. Right here. It's getting a little bit, not too much to hold on to with my left hand. I think I can get it. Oops, looks like we broke off a little corner there. We're probably going to go ahead and recut this one. We got plenty of extra glass right here to do that. So that's kind of the, see, we cut that little corner off. So you want to avoid that. So we'll probably take it a little bit slower on this next round. Fortunately, we've got plenty of glass right here to use. And I think I might even bring our little trash can over here and get this all swept out of here. Into the trash can this time. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and probably separate this piece. There we go. And then we can go through and score this one all the way down. And since I already know I'm going to want to do a bunch of scores right here, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And another thing I'm going to do differently this time is I'm going to actually break this one out first. I'll go ahead and score everything else too, but that's the spot we're going to break out first. It's kind of the weakest point of the whole thing. So we're going to want to remove as much of this as we can. Just, oh, look, it broke through again. So that is less than ideal. Definitely want to recut that one. Probably going to have to get a little more glass for that. Let me grab that. Cut a little bit more here. Let's see, about right here should do. So even for me, sometimes the glass is a little bit tricky to break. Get all this stuff. Give this another shot here. I think we'll do one more in here. I think even before we do any other scoring, we're going to go ahead and break this out. So this is what you want to see, how it just breaks out little by little. There we go. So that's what you want to see, just like that. So we've still got all of our little corners, and then we can pretty easily go through and score everything and make the rest of these breaks. This is another one of those. It's going to be a little bit of a trickier one. Now, sometimes when it gets to be kind of small like this, I like to use the mini Grosjears because it just is not as wide and it's not going to try to remove as much glass at a time. This is actually working out okay with this one. Sometimes it gets a little bit crunchy with little glosses. I think I will go ahead and switch to it because it just makes it a little bit easier. See, this is a little bit too wide and it starts to intersect the vinyl in places I don't want. Whereas the other one, it's just narrow enough, just makes it a little bit easier. You can kind of see the difference in the two widths here. So this is the mini Grosjear right here. So we're gonna just use that. And you see you can much easier remove just a little bit of material at a time. We can go back and clean anything else up on the grinder. So that's how I like to do that. And we'll go ahead and do the other one, the mirror image piece. This one is probably the hardest one. The other piece we had a little more trouble on, but this one is going to be the hardest one, I think. So you're going to want to give it a little bit of time, especially in this little spot right here. And I think that's, I've got one more score in there. And the mini Grosjear really does a good job getting in there. We can clean that up on the grinder. Now, the mini Grosjear has a little bit, the jaw is a little bit narrower, so it doesn't have as much force. You can't really do as much force on it. So that's why I normally will use the wider one. Because it's kind of more concentrated, the force, whenever you squeeze it. And it seems to make it a little bit harder for some reason. It's just not as evenly distributed. And I find that the glass, it can crack if you're trying to really squeeze a bigger piece to separate it. I find that it can crack sometimes. And not quite in the way that you want the glass to. These shapes are really easy to cut when they're radius on the outside radius. Because it doesn't really have any weak points. Now this piece, it's very small. So this one, I think I'm for sure going to need to be using this right here. Because you can pretty easily cut yourself if you're trying to hold it with one hand and trying to really torque it down with the Grosjears in your other hand. So we're just doing kind of slow separations. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take off a little bit of that glass because it is just too much leverage if we want to keep that fine point, which we do as much as possible. So what I'll do is I'll put the Grosjears right up on that score, and it'll help it to break right in the right spot. And this piece, it's so small, I'm probably just going to clean it up on the grinder. But that got us pretty close. I could maybe get this down just a little bit more. Down to that score. There we go. I'll clean that up on the grinder. I got a few more of these tiny pieces here. Oops. And if you need to wear some gloves, by all means. I'm going to take off a little bit of this glass. I think it'll make it just a little bit easier. There we go. That will do. Really got a nice palette for this month. I like all these different colors. I have to use this blue-green a little more often. It's a pretty nice one. And it's getting a little bit too small for me to use my other hand. I can just foresee band-aids in my future if I keep trying. There we go. Got the little black pupils here. Yeah, cats, they have those their pupils when they're looking at stuff kind of change and stuff. Kind of dilate. Kind of funny. So kind of a small, weak piece. I'm going to remove a little bit more material. And then this will hopefully make it a little bit easier to... There we go. Close enough. We can get that on the grinder. And it might be... It's probably a little bit misconception that the smaller pieces are easier and the bigger pieces are harder, but you have a little bit more material to grab onto. And so doing really small pieces with a lot of kind of intricate cuts, or even doing big panels with a lot of small intricate cuts, kind of the same thing. It's a little bit harder. It's a little more time consuming to do it like that. So just something to keep in mind if you are starting. Kind of sticking with some of those simpler patterns. And we've got a ton of free, simple stained glass scrap patterns in the Stained Glass Mastery group. You can get those for free. Or you can purchase these vinyl templates that we sell too. There we go. And this is the last piece. This is the little mouthpiece, or little chin. There we go. We can clean that up on the grinder. This is all of our trash glass right here. If you like to do mosaics, you can use this for that. All right. So now we are going to get into the grinding here. Now, let's see here. That's the best way to do this. I might get another camera for the grinder. Might be a little bit of a better picture here. So I did end up getting the 1/4-inch bit here. Not necessarily required for this project, I don't think. Nah, there's nothing really that you need that for this project. But, you know, just in case for the future projects. And I like to just really saturate the sponge here. And you can kind of see in the background the new foiler we've got right here. And I think what I'm going to do is actually put up a little cage around this grinder because it's kind of spitting a lot of stuff everywhere. At least up against the foiler, keep that clean as much as possible. So we've got this thing pretty much all ready. I've got this little new tool also to help push in the glass if you don't want to push on the edge with your hands. Kind of keep you from getting cut that way. So pretty simple situation here. Let's see if I can get you a good angle. You just take the glass and we're just removing any excess glass down to the white vinyl. So this is a white glass, you can't really see it easily. Here's a better example. You see all that area around the white? That's what we want to remove. So you just put it down. Now these smaller pieces, the vinyl, it can get unstuck pretty easily, so make sure it's stuck down pretty good. Because if it gets any water in there, it's going to kind of get unstuck. And so you can't, kind of hard to see from your angle, but I'm just slowly, sometimes when the pieces are really small, you kind of have to use your hands. So we're just taking this down until we are at the template. And then in a little bit, we're going to check to see how well it fits. So you see we had a lot of color all the way around that last time, and now it's pretty much all gone. So that is what we want. So this is done. I'm going to go ahead and complete this one. So you see how sometimes this radius is too narrow, and this big 1-inch bit is too wide, and that's why you need the smaller one. But we don't need it for this project today. Now I am looking over here at our otter piece. You see this little eyeball right here? Well, for that one, we might need to use the tiny bit, the 1/4-inch bit, to get that shape grinded out properly in the pieces that surround it, especially this piece on top. So let's see if you can see it. Definitely when we get to that project, you'll see, but let me see if I can get the light just right to where you can see it. Actually, let me look over here on the close camera. You'll have a better idea. Let me turn this off for a second. So right here on this piece, see how the little eyeball cuts into that piece? Well, that's where we're going to need to do some grinding right here. Right here in this piece right here. And right here where the eyeball kind of cuts up into it. That's where we're going to have to do some grinding with the little tiny grinding wheel. So just something to keep in mind for that week. And of course, everything you see here we do sell. Alrighty, got that piece done. we go. And I like to do grinding on all the pieces because it will just give us a nice even edge for our foil to adhere to. And that will really help us out in the long run there. There we go. Got these tiny little pieces. This piece is the nose. And for the grinding part, the more time you take, the kind of better your pieces will fit. So you kind of want to take your time here, make sure to really, do a good job and get that glass edge right up to the edge of that vinyl, and it'll look like a machine cut it out. And if it's not perfect, that's okay too. It's better to get some projects going instead of, worrying about it being 100% perfect all the time and never getting anything done. So make sure to, get in there. And of course, doing projects is always going to be more beneficial to you than just watching, videos and stuff. So, if you're on the fence about it, I encourage you to kind of get started. And, of course, join the free Sandglass Mastery community. And you'll have a really good support group of other artists and a place to ask questions, share projects. And, of course, we have a lot of resources from tool list videos, all that stuff. We've got a few more pieces here. Now this vinyl, it is very resilient. I normally like to put it back onto the pattern, and it's not going to be really nicely sticky. Of course, each one does come with two pieces, two patterns, so you can do the project twice. But you could reuse the template pieces, and you could glue them down with like Elmer's glue or some sort of water-soluble glue. So if you wanted to reuse the shapes, you could definitely do that. We've got about 3 more pieces here. All right, we got our last piece here. All right, so we are done with the grinding. Now we need to go through and clean up all of our pieces here. Now what I like to do is use our favorite blue glass cleaner. And so we need to peel these off and kind of put them back onto our pattern here best as we can. I'm going to kind of look across and try to kind of put them in the right spot. I think it'll be the best way if you want to try to reuse these. Kind of at least demonstrate what that might look like. And you're going to have to kind of start from one spot and build it out. It's going to be hard to like put the eyes in there if you don't have a reference point for it. So I'm going to start with those kind of cheek pieces, if you will, and let's see, this is sort of an eyepiece, something like that. Yeah, right there. Oops, and I'm actually seeing now. And Element's just having a hard time grinding the smaller pieces. It can be tricky. Sometimes what I'll do is instead of kind of pushing it up against on the little table of the grinder, I'll kind of hold it like this, and then I'll kind of push it into the wheel and kind of just knock it down like that if I'm having a hard time. That's normally how I'll try to take care of that. Okay. And as you know, the grinding wheel, it's not like a really sharp, like, saw blade or anything. So it really won't hurt you. I mean, if you leave it on there for, maybe like a few minutes or something, it could definitely wear down the skin. It's kind of like a sandpaper. When you touch a sandpaper, it really doesn't hurt. But, if you're to sand it, at a really high speed or something, yeah, it'll start to take some skin off. But it'll take a little bit for that to happen. So it's just something to keep in mind there. Okay, so we've got our pieces here. We need to go ahead and see all this white powder. It's all that glass dust. We're going to want to clean that up. And what I think we're going to want to do today, I've got a microfiber cloth, and I think this is going to work out really nicely for us. So I'm just going to kind of spray it down, and then I'm going to kind of take away all that material. And we'll have a nicely cleaned up piece ready to foil. And the new foiler. So that's pretty exciting. Oops, we left a little piece of vinyl on there. Get that off. So I'll just kind of douse these in that gloss cleaner, and then using the microfiber cloth, we can just remove all that debris. And we'll be ready for some foil. And if they're a little bit wet, you want to get them pretty dry. It's going to be hard for that foil to adhere if it's not pretty much perfectly dry. We can always, we can always go through and it'll air dry a little bit, while you're waiting. But if you have to, you might have to just dry it off a little bit more when it comes time to foil it. And you should be able to pretty much feel if it's a little bit wet or not. And if you can't feel if it's wet, then it's probably dry enough where you don't have to worry about it. And it's hard to tell on these pieces because it's already kind of a whitish edge. But on the other pieces, you can really see how powdery these get. See all that? See all that right there? We want to make sure to remove all that stuff. And we want to make sure that the faces, or the sort of the front and back, are nice and oil-free and debris-free and all that too. So just something to keep in mind for that. And we're going to see how well the foiler works on these really tiny pieces. I haven't used it on tiny pieces yet. So that's going to be an interesting thing. Pretty excited for it. Used it a little bit yesterday on the beginner stained glass video. And those pieces were pretty big, but it worked out pretty well. So I liked it. But today's going to be another good test. And we're going to have to test it for a little while to make sure it's going to be up to our standards if we're going to be offering it. So we're going to give it a few tests. This will be the second test today, and I think by the time we get recording next week's live stream, we'll have tried it out for a third time. And I think by then we're going to pretty much know if it's a keeper or not. And the microfiber, I think it does a little bit of a better job cleaning up than just a normal rag. Not really sure why. But it really does seem like the other one, sometimes it maybe can spread a lot of debris around. Whereas I'm not sure why. This thing just seems to really pick it up good. Sure, there's some science about it. This is that kind of piece that goes right down the middle. You can kind of see the difference in the color. A little bit more washed out on the side we're going to be using. And with that is our last piece to clean. So now we can reveal the new foiler here. We're going to see what we think about it in real time. So it's pretty easy to load here. It's a pretty nice little solution. It's all, you know, we might be saying goodbye to the 2x4. A little bit sad. Been using that for a really long time. But you know how it is. So it kind of feeds the foil into these little wheels right here. And I do want to grab a little bit of foil out of there and kind of snip it out so we can get some new stuff here. And I'm going to make a full video on this at some point if we decide to keep it around, which honestly I think so far that is our general consensus. So let's do a quick look at it since we're here. So you can store the different sizes right here that you've got, or you could just put, you know, all of them in there, different finishes, whatever. It does separate the backing right here, and it kind of feeds it into these grooves. And now I'm using a 7/32 foil, so you see we've got the little 7/32 right there, but you can do 1/4 or 3/16 on here. And probably the thing that I like the most about this so far is that this adjusts for different glass thicknesses. So if you have it to be a little bit thinner or thicker, it sort of is spring-loaded right there. So you see when I do this lever, you see it opens it a little bit. So in case the glass isn't perfectly, you know, the exact thickness every single time, it's going to work out still. So you just kind of open it up, put the piece of glass in, pull it through. We're just pivoting it right on this little, it's almost like, I don't know what to call that. Not like a bushing, but just that little plastic piece, that clearish plastic piece. And we just kind of push the glass into it as we go around. And probably this part that we start on, I'm going to snip it off a little bit. And what I'll do, and I'm still kind of getting used to it a little bit, but It seems like it works pretty good. Now when we get to the beginning, to the start and stop point, I am going to just kind of pull it out a little bit so that I can overlap it. Snip that down. Get a decent overlap. And then we can fold it over like we normally do. So it's still pretty quick. I'm still getting used to it, of course. Does a really good job centering everything up. And I'm just so used to the other one. I really loved that other setup. But it was a little bit unrefined. It just took a little bit too much setup for the customer. So pretty good results so far on this first try today. So we're going to give this another shot here. So we'll stick it into there, pull it through. As we're pulling it through, really trying to focus on pushing this glass into that little plastic piece there. Oops. Sometimes the glass will just slip right out. And when we get to the start-stop point, we're going to want to pull it out. Snip off a pretty good piece so that we can have a nice little overlap. Try to get about 1/4 inch if we can. And then we can do the same thing. We'll go through and Ella just mentioned she just made the 2x4. Haven't tried it yet. Went camping. Just got back from camping. Yeah, I think, I mean, the price difference is also immense. So this thing, I think it's going to come in over $100, and the little foiler, it's pretty inexpensive, relatively speaking. So definitely there's still a place for the other foiler, especially if you don't want to sort of DIY the little setup. But so far this is working pretty good. It's just taking me a little bit to get used to it. Back to the start-stop point, pull it out just a little bit, snip it down, and there you have it. So we'll kind of just fold this piece down, fold all that foil down, set that aside. So working out pretty good so far. And you can see these are all kind of wacky shapes. So this foiler is having no problems with the shapes so far. So that is a big positive. Pull it out. Over the stop start just a little bit. And this is a little bit less than I normally like to do, but it'll be all right. As far as a little bit less of the overlap, I like to probably try to do at least 1/4 inch, but it will be okay. And yeah, it's pretty good, I'm still not fully convinced that it will be replacing our old foiler. I think I might need to do a little bit of refinement on this product here. Make sure I got everything set up properly. Let's see. Yeah, I think that, I'm actually kind of curious. I'm wondering if I actually, let's see here. I think that I might Yeah. This foil, I believe it is a 7/32. I'm actually going to go ahead and give this a shot on the 1/4 inch size because it feels like it's maybe just crimping up a little bit when I'm trying to use it. So I'm going to switch this over to the 1/4 inch. We're going to put this through because I don't know if this foil is 1/4 inch or 7/32. And now I think actually it's going to work a little bit better now that I've got it on the 1/4 inch. We'll see. Let's give this a shot, see what happens. Because these little bearings, or whatever you want to call them, the bushings, they are very precise. And if, you know, the foil, it seemed like it was a little bit kind of getting crimped on the edges here. It looks like it's a little bit better now. I do still want to do a little more testing on it. Maybe try some different foils on it, that type of thing. Just to see what our end results are. I mean, it worked a little bit easier for me on the 1/4 inch. Pretty good results here. Let's see. We'll give it another try on the 1/4 inch, then we might switch it back to the 7/32. And of course, you don't necessarily even need one of these to do your projects. You can, of course, do it by hand. I personally just like all the little gadgets and stuff. If it helps out, make it a little bit faster, a little bit, you know, nice and consistent finish. If it really centers everything up nicely, then I like that too. So something to consider. But definitely not a requirement to do projects. I had just used that other foiler for so many years. That might take me a little getting used to change it up. Pretty good. Okay. I'm not sure yet. The sort of spring-loaded tension here, it feels like it's a little bit, I mean, at least for me, it's not as freely moving, and it does feel like it's just a lot of friction when you're trying to push the glass through. And I'm not sure what I think about it yet. I do see the need for it, and it will help, especially if the glass is a different thickness. But it is a little bit, I guess honestly annoying would be the right word, to when trying to push it through, there's just this constant friction, and it kind of, I don't know, it just makes kind of pushing the glass through a little bit. And it might be that my muscle memory is just so used to the other one where there's zero friction, I can just kind of run it through. And this one, I just need to maybe learn it a little bit better. Now, one thing is that I'm not sure if this is going to work with the smaller pieces here. You know, these pieces are pretty small, so what we might have to do is I'm going to probably pull this out a little bit. And we're going to give this a shot in here. Push it through. This thing might just be honestly too small for this. And that friction makes it really kind of tough too. And it didn't quite center it when I put it in there. Let's pull this out here. Yeah, I think for these smaller pieces, I'll probably need to just hand foil them. But it does work as a good dispenser for that. And yeah, Ella mentioned that she likes those gadgets too. And the water jet, there is that one called Wazer. Yeah, I've seen those too. I think they're $4,000 or $5,000, something like that. They're pretty costly. I know that we've been looking at a few, but that one, it's very small. It's like maybe 1 foot by 2 feet, something like that, 12 by 24, or maybe like 18 by 24, something like that is the full cutting surface. And they might have other ones. I know that the one that I had seen, it was kind of smaller like that. And we were looking at maybe getting one that's like a 4 foot by 8 footer, and they're pretty expensive too, like 50 to 100,000. So they get up there. I mean, it can definitely save a lot of time in terms of labor expense to cut, instead of doing it, paying by hour per person to do a bunch of cutting like that. So it is economical in terms of that. But it is a major investment for sure. They have a lot of upkeep, the little pumps like fail, stuff like that. So it's almost like, is it even worth it, when it gets to be a lot of that, a lot of messing around with stuff. Yeah, I'm not too sure about this thing. It's just got a lot of friction right here, trying to get it through. I'm probably going to do is pull a decent bit through so I can at least use it as a dispenser. And I think I'm also going to go ahead and switch this thing back to the 7/30 seconds. It's a little bit, a little bit tricky here. I think I got to take this out. Okay, there we go. Got it on that 7/30 second. Go ahead and put this back through. I'm going to keep a little bit out over here so I can hand foil these little tiny pieces. So whenever you're foiling them by hand, you want to really try to center that up, of course. And it just takes a little bit of time trying to really get that. No matter what, whenever you have tiny pieces like this, they're going to be a little tricky. And we've got a little bit of a overlap misalignment. We can fix that with the X-Acto blade. Let's see here. Looks like I've got 3 of these. Looks like I'm missing one of our little pieces. Oh, here it is. So for me, if you have to kind of go through and foil this by hand, it sort of is going to defeat the purpose. Definitely works well for the bigger pieces, but the tiny pieces, I mean, like I said, even the tiny pieces on the other foiler, it's a little bit tricky too. I would say as a dispenser, this works out really well too. And I will be doing a little tinkering off camera just to make sure I've got everything set up right. And we've just got these 2 little people pieces left. And these are black glass, so if most of it's going to end up being covered by the foil, which we will be putting black patina on, so that is okay if it gets fully blacked out right there. All right. Got this all put down. Now we need to do some burnishing. Now this little foiler does come with a little fid, which I think will, it's a very nice little fid, so we're going to give it a shot here. So again, we want to go ahead and do all of the edges first. And then we'll go back and do the faces. And we used that microfiber cloth today. It really cleaned everything up really nicely. Everything is sticking very well. Oops, got a little piece of vinyl there. Oops, and we're a little off. There we go. Go through, give this a shot here. So this is a smooth glass, so it's working out pretty good for that. And all the glasses that we are working with this month are pretty smooth, not too much texture. So that'll kind of make it a little bit easier for the foiling. There we go. Second piece. So here we are, of course, doing the edges first. And then we're going to go ahead and do the face into the middle. Do that on both sides. And we are pretty much all burnished down. And yeah, I think that I'm going to tinker with it a little bit, see if I can get it to work a little bit better. And yeah, I would definitely wait to see kind of maybe what I think about it a little bit more, if it's worth getting. I think that right now it's a little bit of a learning curve, which so was the little foiler too when I first used it. I think that it was a little more intuitive, but again, it did require a little bit more setup and not as really clean and polished looking necessarily. But I think that, yeah, I think we're going to give it a few more shots here. I think too I might try it with the little open. It's got a little open lever. I think maybe if I leave that open, it might make it a little bit easier for the glass to sort of kind of slide through in it. And I think I'm going to give that a try next time. But the results so far are not too bad. I do think overall it's still a little bit faster than the hand foiling. And this piece has got a lot of these little curves. So I want to sort of take our time with those. Make sure we get both sides really good. And now we've got all the big pieces out of the way. We're going to go ahead and do these little tiny pieces. Same thing here. And this little fid works pretty good. And this little food works pretty good on these little tiny pieces too. And it has a few of these kind of corners, so it'll be useful for the textures when we do use texture gloss. So that's always something that I want to be kind of thinking about, because if we can't really burnish down the texture gloss, it's not going to be too useful. But overall, it's working out pretty good. Got a little bit of a piece here. We're going to want to trim that down. There we go. And our foil is sticking really good. So we like to see. These little tiny pupils will be a good test, because whenever it's on a really tiny piece like that, it can... something weird happens with the foil. It gets a little bit... it just doesn't have as much surface area to stick to, maybe, because it's such a small piece. It seems to slide around sometimes. There we go. Just got these tiny little people pieces left. And so this fit, it comes with the new foiler. So we're gonna see if we're gonna keep that around or not. And you can see this foil is almost covering out this piece almost completely, which is fine, because we are going to be putting the black patina. You know, we want it to look like a black pupil. So that is pretty much going to work out for us perfectly. Just putting a little bit more foil on here where it didn't quite center up perfectly. Put that on, burnish it down. Okay, and now we are ready to begin soldering. So we're going to put this to the side. And I think we are going to maybe keep this right here for a second to help us with the alignment of all the pieces. We can see how we did after cutting, grinding, foiling, and we can see how we are looking as far as the fitting of everything. Now we are going to want to use the kind of more washed out side for some areas, and we're using the more colorful side in some areas. And of course we have the little color for the pupils. How did those look? Something like this. Let's see. take a little bit of time just to make sure everything fits properly. I think that goes there. This is a pretty important step here. I want to make sure everything is the way we want it. So we've got the kind of bolder colors in the ears and nose, and then the more washed out in the rest of it. And we're going to have to fit in these eyes. It's kind of a tight fit there. So let's see how we can make sure everything fits good. I want to kind of compare these pieces just to make sure they are a little bit different shapes here. So we are going to want to make sure we put the right ones in the right spot. Now I think that the piece that goes on the outside is a little bit smaller, and the piece that goes on the inside, that one is the little bit of a bigger one. And then we're going to get the black glass for the middle. Try to fit everything in there really nicely. And we might have to do some more grinding down here before we get started with the soldering, because these are a little bit not quite fitting right. And when it's really small like this, you are going to need for that to fit really well. Make sure I have all the little pupils sort of in the right orientation. Yeah, I think we're definitely going to need to go back and actually undo some of this and do some more soldering or more grinding, probably on the little piece that goes on the outside, just a little bit more there. I think that will pretty much get us where we need to be. Yeah, because the eyes, they're just a little bit too big as is. So what we might even do, yeah, if we really want it to fit inside of these sort of cheek pieces, so these need to be grinded down quite a bit more. And we'll see how well these things are adhered. Pretty good. Pretty well adhered. And this happens sometimes. So probably what you're going to want to do when you do this is you're going to want to make sure to check your pieces on the pattern, especially in these eye areas, because there's a really almost no room for error here. It's got to be a really good fit. So we are going to go ahead and do that on this round. So make sure to check the eyes very closely. So normally whenever I have to mess with these, and this is very well adhered, so we'll make sure to clean it up just as well. Normally try to use the X-Acto blade to kind of peel it up a little bit. So what we're going to plan to do here is take down probably the full perimeter Grind it down, grind it down. And it's probably not going to be too much grinding. This is a really small piece. But these little adjustments make a big difference with how everything fits. Got one more piece to peel up here. And I think definitely next time with the otter especially, it's another, really all these kind of have a lot of little pieces around the eyes and stuff. So we're going to want to check all those before we go through and foil. So I'm going to put this to the side for a second, bring it back out the grinder. Put our little shield right here. So we're just going to knock those down just a little bit more here. Make sure we have some water. So what you can do, what I think would be the best thing to do, is we could kind of just grind it down, grind until we, get it to where we want it. I think the best thing to do will be to actually put them on here, see how everything's fitting, and then trace it and then grind it down to that. So you see when I look at this, I pretty much want it to fit like this. I want it to be pretty tight right there in the cheek and everything. So what we're going to want to do is put this down, and then we can kind of see through it. And we want to make sure, so really I think that the bottom and the side will work, but this one we need to grind down quite a bit, about maybe like that much. I think if we do that, it will fit good. And what you could even probably do, let's see, since it's a pretty fair amount, I'm going to go ahead and even just score it down a little bit, and then Grosier it down, and then just clean it up on the grinder. So it's a pretty minimal adjustment here, but enough to make a really big difference. So we kind of snipped off that part. We're going to grind that down, and then we're going to see if it kind of fits in there. Let's see how we're looking here. So this is quite a bit smaller than it was before. Now that's fitting in there quite well. So now we want to do on the other side something similar. So we'll kind of place it on there. And then we are going to do pretty much the same thing. And this one, we need to remove. Instead of kind of doing a mark like you normally would, I'll do little dots so that it doesn't move the piece around. Let's see if you can see that. Put it on the close camera over here. Kind of see those little dots, and then I'll just connect them. And then with the glass cutter, and that'll be down pretty much. That will effectively work as a good mark for me. Go ahead and clean this up on the grinder. All right, now that is fitting pretty good. So that's how we're going to do the other side too. We're going to fit it in exactly the way we want it. And then we are going to make sure the pupil is sort of at the right angle. We'll kind of, oops, got a little bit of foil left on here. Oops, we're going to want to put this right where we want it, because this is what we're going to kind of use as our template here to make sure that the piece is exactly the right size. So that's going to be in the right spot. I'm going to put some little dots on there to mark where the cut needs to be made. And I can barely see it. I'm going to kind of darken it. Okay. Probably going to go ahead and check it just to make sure. That will look good. Go ahead and cut this off. Just a little bit too small to use just one. There we go. Now this one should fit in there pretty good. All right. And we've got one more to cut down, then we can kind of foil these up. Now this one, it fits pretty good on the two curves. It's just that top part needs to be knocked down just a little bit. Probably something about like that will do. Kind of see if this will fit in there pretty good, or if we need to further adjust it. It's looking pretty good. Let's see here. I think I'm going to curve this down just a little bit more on the grinder and we'll be good to go. So I'm going to grind these two down. I think the other two are grinded already. And I think y'all know what that looks like, so I'm going to do it off camera real quick. All right. Now we're going to want to definitely clean these up with our little microfiber cloth here, so we can do some foiling. Got our 4 little pieces here ready. All right. We'll go ahead and give this foiler another shot right here. Now I did go ahead and just fully open it, because we're really just using it as a dispenser right now, because these pieces are too small. Alright, got our first piece foiled. Go back and burnish that here in a second. I think for these smaller pieces, I'm going to go ahead and kind of, it's a little bit hard to do with just your fingers to kind of fold all the little foil edges down. But with a little tool, works out a little bit better, I think. All right. Got our last piece here. Go ahead and fold this all down. Go ahead and burnish this down. Just like the others. We've got a little repair to do right there. Got a little bit of that color still showing through. There we go. Had a little bit too much overlapping on this side. Just cut it down with the X-Acto blade. Get a nice reveal. Got one piece ready here. Now you are going to want to, if you kind of do it this way, you're going to want to kind of try to remember where each of them was. And I think I've got them in the right spots here. Yeah, I think that one was there too. So now we're going to go through and finish burnishing these. And we will be where we left off, about ready to solder. So sometimes you have to do these little pivots Just a little quick fix. And it's a little bit quicker if you check as you go. So that's something to keep in mind there. I don't believe that we've had that problem here yet. I think that we've been doing a pretty good job. Oops. Nicked off a little bit of that foil. We're going to do a little repair here. Ella mentioned that she checks as she goes, and they still don't fit together that well. It happens. It happens. Yeah, I think that what might have happened here is that maybe the thickness of the foil kind of expanded the pieces a little bit. And when you have them that close together, you can start to run into that issue that we're running into right now. It's possible too, when the pieces are really small, I might not grind them down 100% perfectly, because it's kind of hard to grind them when they're really small. So that's another possibility, something that might have happened here. Got one more piece there. And hey, Christine, thank you for joining us. We're doing the cat window today, cat panel. And our cat has some blue-green eyes. And that is what we are working on right now. Okay, that we got it here. I'm going to go ahead and click on the iron. And this is fitting together a lot better. It was really, really off before. But we are looking a lot better now. And I like the little two tones that we're doing here. Give it a little bit of a closer look here. So we did the the ears and the little nose a different color. The rest of the fur is kind of that white and tannish, and we put the little white for the chin, and then we did the black pupil with the little blue-green eyes. So it's coming out pretty good now. We're back on track. We are going to go ahead and get out the flux. I'm going to go ahead and put some gloves on. And let's see if our video yesterday, I think I left all the solder out there. So let me go grab that. I'll be right back. All right. Got our solder right here. Oops. I like to put on some gloves here. Try to not touch stuff too much if I can help it. And we have our fume extractor. that set up. Go ahead and grab some flux. Now we are just going to kind of try to dab some flux on here. We've got a lot of little pieces here. And they are going to move around a lot if we try to kind of solder it, like the whole thing at once. So we are going to first tack solder, and then we will kind of do the rest. So here's our iron here. Let's see how we're looking. All right, we're getting there. Oops. Just dropped a little solder right on the perfect spot. So we're just gonna kind of tack this thing in until everything is at least connected to each other. Sure that we are all one right here. And I think we're pretty much there, if not there. Let's see if we can pick this thing up. Okay, good. It's all staying together. We're going to move it off the little pattern. And now we are going to really flex this thing up. We don't need to try to save any flux or anything. And then we can really put some heavy solder on here. Now we do have some small pieces, so we're going to want to make sure not to cover them up with the solder. Okay? And if we wanted to, for this piece, we probably could have just done the pupils in a solid solder instead of cutting a piece of glass. So if you want to do that, you could substitute that in. And to be quite honest with you, it might even be a little bit easier. Now, this first round, we are not doing a perfect bead. We are just getting everything nicely soldered and connected. And then after we finish the edge beading, we'll go back through and do a nice finished bead. And we're going to make sure to tin the perimeter first. It will make the edge beading later much easier. Okay, so we've got our front side all soldered. It's a little bit warm, so I'm going to go ahead and flip that. Try not to burn yourself. Going to go ahead and really flex this thing up on this side. Now, on the back side here, we do want to put our finished bead here. And so we're going to want to kind of make it look really nice and rounded. And Mary Beth mentioned that she tried something new, and before putting the solder, put some masking tape on the front side, soldered the back first, and then took the tape off and soldered the front. Came out better. And so that's, yeah, definitely something you can try to get a nice, instead of putting a little tiny piece of gloss in there, you can put the tape on the backside, sort of use it as like a stop, and then you can put the, then you'll have the solder there when it cools, and you can, put it, there we are. You can put that finished bead on the front. And I like to just, if it ever gets kind of gummed up, my soldering iron, I'll just wire brush off some of that stuff. I'll have a nice clean iron again. So we'll do a nice finished bead here. And I think we're definitely going to try something like that for the otter, because that one has a tiny little eye. I mean, it won't even be feasible to cut a piece of gloss like that. So for that one's little eye, we are definitely going to be doing that. And we are using lead-free solder, or I'm using lead-free solder here today. It's a little bit harder to work with. And so in order to get a nice rounded bead, you have to kind of tap that sort of molten edge into another molten edge, and it'll just kind of give you that look you want. And sometimes when you go over it too much, you end up kind of going backwards. So, try to, if it looks pretty good and you like it, then, you don't want to spend the rest of your life going over the same thing. Another thing too is if you get it too hot, you can start cracking that glass. I mean, it takes quite a bit to get to that point, but it is a possibility that you want to avoid. And if it looks like it's really sunken in all the solder, you probably need to add just a little bit more. So this is one of those spots that looks a little bit sunken in. I'm going to add some. Get it to look nice and rounded. Go ahead and tin the perimeter here. Now what we're going to want to do is go ahead and edge bead this. And Christine mentioned that she used a silicone craft mat that holds pieces in place. That's actually a pretty good idea. Instead of having to tack solder it, I can see it kind of being a little bit sticky and holding that. That's a good idea. So what we're going to want to do now is go ahead and I'm going to get a heat-resistant glove on. And we're going to use this to kind of hold the piece with our hand, and we can go through and kind of, probably before we edge bead, well, we can do it after. We'll put the wire on. I am going to go through and flux the perimeter, and this is a pretty simple perimeter to do. Sometimes we have a lot of edges sort of inside the piece, but this one is pretty simple to do. So we can just start right from the top. I like to position my solder kind of up so that I can easily kind of just grab it and just do the edge beading, and we can rotate the piece in our hand as we go along. And we'll just kind of rotate the piece so that gravity is in your favor. And you want it to kind of have a nice beaded edge, much as you can. You probably don't want to just tin it. It'll kind of be weak if you do that. But if you put a nice bead, just like we do on the face, then you'll get the results that you're looking for. Okay, so we've pretty much got now this is the viewing side. We're going to want to touch this up, and then we're going to want to put on our little wire. And we're probably going to put it on right here. We'll kind of just, I'll show you here in a second kind of what the plan is with that. Now, I like to kind of do the edge beading after doing the backside, because it'll give time for the solder to cool a little bit. You know, if it's really hot from the backside, then it could be kind of difficult to do the soldering, you know, to fix the bead on the front side. It'll just get way too wet and it'll kind of sink through to the backside. But if you let the backside cool, well, now that heat, it's going to be a lot harder to conduct it to make that backside molten too, to where it'll just sink right through. So that's why I kind of do it in this order. We're going to try to keep that molten edge. It'll keep it from getting kind of the bumps and ridges much as we can. And I think after we fix this, it'll be pretty good on this side. I just fix this eye spot a little bit more. All right, and now we want to put our little hanging apparatus. So what we're going to do here, let's see, we want to get some wire. So I like to just use this little wheel of wire, put a little loop on it like this, and then I'll just twist it a few times. Kind of have a nice reinforced little spot right there to drop some solder into. And I'm kind of looking at this. I think it would be fine if it was offset a little bit. And it was kind of hanging sort of from an angle like this, or do we want it to be straight up and down? How do we want for this? I don't think we want it like this. A little bit of an angle I think would be all right. So we're going to do just a little bit. So we're just going to twist it up. And it's going to be a little bit offset onto one of these pieces. Snip that off. And we are going to solder it on the back side. So about right here-ish is kind of what we're looking at. So this thing conducts heat very quickly. So don't hold it with your hand unless you want to get burned, which I think we want to avoid that. So again, we are going to keep our little solder handy, position it perfectly, and we're going to try to kind of submerge this into that solder that's existing, just like that. So that will hold very nicely. And I'm just going to probably put a little bit more on here, just like that. We just want to smooth that out a little bit. We can kind of flip it over to look at the viewing side. That's looking pretty good. Make sure everything is holding up nicely. Still be sort of holding it a little bit at an angle, and it's hot. I just barely touched it, and it was very warm still. Okay, and now for our last step, we are going to patina this. Thank you for bearing with me through that little mistake we made early on there. Glad that we could recover and get through to getting this thing all patinaed up nicely. And it's worth it to just go back and take your time. It can be a little bit tedious sometimes, but it's, you know, you come this far, you might as well just go that extra little bit and get it fixed, you know? If you know what you need to do, then it's not a big deal. I think that this came out pretty good after all. We are done with the heat glove. Now when I apply the patina here, I don't use the nice microfiber, I just use whatever rag I've got around. And it works out pretty well. And we're going to make sure to apply over the entire thing, front and back. And I'm actually running out of patina here. Got maybe enough for 1 or 2 projects left. I have to remind myself to get another little bottle. I don't want to run out in the middle of this stream. And I like to do a couple coats. I think it just comes out a little bit better if you do it like that. A little bit more of a consistent, even finish. And again, I'm wearing the blue nitrile gloves. Try to keep those chemicals off my hands. And with that, we pretty much have reached the end of today's video. Just gonna dry it off with another cloth here. It's not all saturated in patina. And I do hope that everyone enjoyed today's video. If you haven't already, check out in the description the free Stained Glass Mastery community, where we've got tons of free courses, patterns, and a great community of artists just like you to interact with, ask questions, and share your projects. So again, I hope that everyone enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching. This is the week 1 of the July stained glass project kit. And so we will be looking forward to seeing you next week. I don't know what is up, but I know we've got an otter, orca, and a deer left. So one of those animals, we will see you for next week's project. Thank you so much. Goodbye.